I'm here to warn people. You keep telling me to shut up. This isn't a game.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
We're joined by the author of The Fix Is In, and he's also got a new book out, Brian Toohey. And, of course, he was a big commentator across the board on TV and you name it, until he just began to learn that the fix was in, and the FBI admits the fix is in. Doesn't mean the whole games are rigged, but key plays, key kickoffs, key basketball, he was saying, is amazingly corrupt. I want to get his take on the Super Bowl we just saw and any other big events where the fix has been in, because the fix is in on the stock market. The fix is in on interest rates. We told you that over a decade ago. Now Rolling Stones confirmed it. Remember that headline? The fix is in on everything. LIBOR. The fix is in on the stock market with the high-frequency trading. Just realize that we don't want a chump economy. We don't want to be in a rigged system. We want to be in a system where the individual's empowered, not where the whole thing's gamed. That'd be like putting a baby in a box for the first 5 years and feeding it through a feeding tube and then opening the box up and saying, look, the baby's retarded. I'm smarter than it. And then killing it with a meat cleaver, going, I'm dominant. I locked it up and dumbed it down and gamed it. I'm the king. No, what's dominant is empowering everyone, having a level playing field, being honorable, and then dominating in that system, or at least doing well in that system by being honorable. That's called chivalry, ladies and gentlemen. Every culture had it that rose. The ancient Romans were full of chivalry, more than the English knights. Then they got decadent and had their decline. The Greeks were very chivalrous and then became corrupt in their different city-states. It's the same story, folks. You go through cycles. George Washington was a great knight in shining armor, and then things became corrupt. We need to rediscover that, and I'm telling you, the NFL is not the example of wholesomeness. Look at this. Not only was the game rigged, knowing the hand signs, that's why they dominated Peyton Manning. That's why the game was so terrible. So it was rigged on that front. Now it's come out that Obama, the Daily Caller reports, and the White House admits it, gave the key players who are their buddies information on what to tweet out to create that illusion. This is the type of stuff we're talking about. Just be aware that there's stuff being gamed going on. Brian, thanks for coming on short notice. You've got the floor. Tell us about what you saw with your expert eye, what your inside FBI sources are saying. Was this game rigged, or was it so rigged because the Seahawks knew the plays that it was a terrible game?
Well, it's hard to say. Thanks for having me on, by the way, Alex. But the thing with it is people don't believe that this is possible in the United States. And I think that's the biggest misconception that I tried to prove. I mean, I cannot say for certain whether the Super Bowl was rigged, and I don't think anybody else out there can really say for certain that it wasn't rigged. But the fact of the matter is, one of the world's biggest sporting events, actually the biggest sporting event, the World Cup, which is coming up in Brazil in 2014, we know World Cup soccer matches have indeed been fixed. And we can prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt. If they can fix the world's biggest sporting event, who's to say they couldn't fix the Super Bowl? I mean, it's a football game. That's all it really is it's merely a football game. And the fact of the matter is that gamblers have been able to get to soccer players to get them to fix matches. They've been able to get to tennis players, got them to fix matches. Cricket players got them to fix matches. They can get to our college athletes and get them to fix matches. Why do we believe the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, all these are immune from such corruption? When you look around the United States, and you see corruption in everything, be it business, politics, or even religion, unfortunately. And the fact of the matter is, with the NFL, with all these major sporting leagues, they are an entertainment industry. They are show business. They will argue this. They have argued this in front of the Supreme Court. And because they are show business, they can legally manipulate their own games and get away for it. If the NFL wanted to fix the Super Bowl, they could do it legally, and no one has any recourse or legal obligations to fight them on that.
What do you make of the quarterback saying they knew Manning's plays?
Well, you know, they very well could have figured it out. That could be a very legitimate thing. Or someone could have tipped them off. Someone could have given them the heads up and said, hey, if he does this, this is what the Broncos offense is going to do.
Exactly,
I mean,
and that's basically illegal, so they claim they broke the code instead of having a mole give it to them.
Exactly. And I mean, this has been going on for sports for decades. I mean, the famous shot heard around the world, which was in 1951 between the Giants and Dodgers. Supposedly they were stealing the pitching signals and knew what pitch was coming before it was thrown. I mean, this is nothing new in sports. If this truly is what happened, it could have been a tip-off. It could have been something they figured out. But, you know, to think that these games are always on the level, I think, is very naive. I think it's incredibly naive.
Of
because
course.
people can be gotten to. I mean, that's the bottom line. The mafia knows how to get to people. The government knows how to get to people. And because the NFL has become over and above everything, I mean, in terms of sports, it's become a national holiday, the Super Bowl. I mean, it's a great
And look
thing.
at how the security's paid for by government. They're tax exempt. The NFL's tax exempt. They're really above the law. So the biggest, most corrupt thing is the prime suspect. You've got a new book out called Larceny Games. I haven't read it yet. Tell me about that.
Larceny Games is based on interviews with the gambling insiders in the sports gambling industry, as well as former FBI agents. But mainly it's based on over 400 FBI files I obtained through the Freedom of Information Act. And when the NFL claims we've never had a game fixed ever in our history by the mafia or you know, professional gamblers, these FBI files that I unveiled, which nobody else ever accessed before. I mean, ESPN didn't get it, Sports Illustrated didn't get them. I was the one who went out and got these. These files clearly show that the FBI had numerous information on numerous games, numerous Hall of Fame players and athletes who were involved in not only gambling on their sport, but potentially fixing games. I mean, it's stuff that should be front page news in these major sports media outlets, but they refuse to cover it. I mean, they outright refuse to cover this information.
Well, sure, the FBI until the early 50s said organized crime didn't exist because J. Edgar Hoover was getting paid off.
Oh, yeah. But the fact of the matter is it's funny when you read some of these files, and some of them exist before the passage of the Sports Bribery Act, which happened in 1964, and it made it illegal on a federal level for someone to bribe a player, an athlete, or a coach to fix a game, alter the outcome of a game. The FBI had great information on players who were gambling. They had great information on owners who were gambling. And they really did nothing about it until 1964. Then they started to investigate this stuff. And what they found, I think, was very shocking. And I think if fans and people read Larceny Games, it will change their understanding of not only sports gambling in the United States, which is a massive illegal enterprise worth hundreds of billions of dollars, but it'll also change the way they look at the leagues and look at the league security divisions, which are supposed to be investigating this stuff.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, they're running the whole operation. Do you ever get told to shut up? Because I know you've been on ESPN hundreds of times before you even wrote this book. I knew that you used to be a total sports junkie. Do you ever get phone calls and said, hey, shut up?
No, they don't touch me because really the information I have, I think, is untouchable, is unquestionable. Now, people may not agree with the conclusions I reach, and I can understand that. But a lot of people, you know, out there, people in the sports media will try to belittle me. They will try to, you know, call me a fool, call me an idiot for believing such things. But they're covering up for themselves. I mean, let's face it, ESPN funds the NFL. They fund the NBA. They are not about to do real investigative work on these leagues that they fund, that in turn fund them.
Hello, this is Hank Hill, and I'm telling you what, you need to listen to Alex Jones.
Yeah. Infowars.com.
Judge, what is the secret of the universe?
Infowars.com.
Let's go back to Brian Toohey. Brian, other points about the Super Bowl and how political it's become. That's why I'm sick of sports, is the anti-gun messages, the Obamacare messages. Obama in Monday Night Football intro. I mean, I'm about to puke here. What's some other big corruption news you've got going on?
Well, you know, go back to your point you were just making about, like, music being fake. I mean, you think about the entertainment industry in general, and you think about, like you say, Britney Spears lip-syncing music. You think about, you know, what they could potentially do with the voting in American Idol, and you think about these reality television shows and how they stage things and reenact things and have the producers manipulate things to get certain things to happen. That's exactly what I'm saying sports has become today. It's become an entertainment show. And they're doing the best they can to put on the best show they possibly can, to get the highest ratings they can, to get the most advertising money they can. And they can do all of this legally. A lot of fans want to say, well, this is sports, this is pure. But the fact of the matter is, it's entertainment now. And what the Super Bowl was a massive television show. That's all it was. It was a television show, and they used it like you talk about, to push certain political agendas and certain ideas onto a mass of people, 11 million tuned in.
And they've taught the public that none of that exists. You tell them most live music is not live if it's a big national act. That's just a fact. That's well known in the industry. They go, you're a conspiracy theorist. You tell them that a lot of sports are rigged or paid off. They tell them you're a conspiracy theorist. You tell them the Federal Reserve is private, which is a fact. They tell you you're a conspiracy theorist. The word conspiracy theory is like a crutch for dumb people, I think.
Well, what it was, I think, is because skeptics hijacked the word skeptic. You know what I mean? They turned skeptic into towing the party line. Whereas us supposed conspiracy theorists are really the skeptical ones. We're the ones who are questioning the status quo. We're questioning what we're being presented. Meanwhile, the skeptics are just backing that. Just saying, well, you're crazy because you don't think the way everyone else thinks. Well, that doesn't mean we're wrong. I mean, just because you don't like it, you can't just call yourself a skeptic and call me a conspiracy theorist. And if anything, maybe we're both skeptics. But it's not.
By the way, I'll throw in a little secret about Megadeth, because I've gotten to see it like 5 times, which is really good. In the dressing room, they play the entire hour and a half, 2 hours, the whole thing before they go out, with amplifiers and everything, in a room, and I can just sit back and, sip on iced tea or whatever and see the whole concert. But the point is to then learn that most other bands literally just play a soundtrack now. Can you believe that? I mean, and by the way, it didn't used to be like that. It's getting worse and worse, where I guess because the public will accept it. Why not just have holograms at the concert?
Well, I mean, go back to the Super Bowl, and you think about how much time and energy, effort, and practice, like the Denver Broncos put in, and how great Peyton Manning is. He's a 5-time MVP, and, I mean, he's a legend. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's already won a Super Bowl ring, and then you see what they did on that field on Sunday, and you think, well, where did all that practice go? Where did all that preparation go? How did it just completely fall apart? Was it really just that Seattle's defense was that good? Was it because they knew his hand signals?
No, Seattle's bragging that they had the hand signals.
Yeah, but I mean, exactly. Was something else going on that we just weren't alert to, that we just didn't know as fans, that we were being shown one thing and being hidden from something else? I mean, that's what I talk about in sports, is I want people to think of sports in a different light. I want them to take this and realize.
What do you think happened with the power going off last year?
Oh, I think that was a fake. I really do.
Yeah, because they make millions of dollars every 30 seconds with the viewers, and if you have a power outage for a few minutes, that gets everybody to tune back in, to pay attention, and yeah, I agree with you, totally staged. Symbols are powerful, and the globalists have hijacked the symbols of America. They've turned them into their own symbols. Well, we are restoring the idea of the true republic, not the counterfeit globalist empire, by promoting the icon George Washington and others. That's why we're rolling out an 100% made in America line of incredible pro-liberty apparel. We are repopularizing liberty. We are helping fellow Americans rediscover what made this country great. We are the spirit of 1776. We are 1776 worldwide. We are all brothers and sisters in arms in the animating contest of liberty, in the long march towards humanity's ultimate destiny of freedom. Visit madein1776.com today and vote with your dollars to promote truly made in America, high-quality products, and promote the ideals of liberty. Played part of it. We're going to play it again for everybody here, where he went into the most valuable player press conference, infiltrated throughout all the security while the MVP was mumbling, one of the linemen, and pointed out that 9/11 was an inside job perpetrated by people inside the government. And regardless of what you think of that statement, regardless of what you believe really happened there, it shows the security is total theater and nothing but a big police state power grab. I mean, they never had this stuff in the past. And then meanwhile, our own government's funding al-Qaeda overseas. Let's play the full clip here.
9/11 was perpetrated by people within our own government.
And we had that gentleman on the show yesterday, Brian Toohey, author of The Fix Is In, the Showbiz, manipulation of professional sports. What's your take on that and the security point you were getting into?
Well, isn't that just that one incident kind of a microcosm, like you say, of the American security state? That we supposedly have all this security, and yet this guy with a pass to a music festival walks right through all this Super Bowl security, all the way into the press conference and all the way up to the microphone. I mean, imagine if he did manage to get a gun in there. Imagine if he was some sort of terrorist or something like that. I mean, that's how ridiculous the security state is. But going to the Super Bowl, going back to the blackout, I mean, think of all the security they had in place in New York here. They had all that same sort of security in place in New Orleans. But the fact is, when the power went out, no one panicked. And that, I think, was the biggest tip-off, is if you think about what just happened at the Super Bowl, again, the biggest TV broadcast in America every year, and the lights go out and nobody panics, wonders, was this a terrorist attack? Did Anonymous do this? What happened here? They all just sat there and said, oh, the power went out, no big deal. I think that's kind of a tipping sign, a tipping point that shows that, a lot of this stuff just isn't what you really think it is.
Oh, I agree with you. And then meanwhile, every halftime show I see has weird sex magic rituals. For those that don't know, weird Illuminati connotations. You see the Grammys full of that. Any idea on why they're always putting the occult into these primetime events now?
It's really hard to say. I mean, that's not something I ever really looked into. But if you look into the fact of the people who own these NFL teams, who own these professional sport franchises, I think you'd find that these guys are some serious bigwigs. I mean, Paul Allen is the owner of, the Seattle Seahawks. And I think if you see what the government gives to these professional sports leagues, like you mentioned before, the tax breaks, the tax exempt statuses, they build stadiums for crying out loud. I mean, this is the modern bread and circuses, except now it's, especially flavored potato chips in the NFL. But it's the same sort of thing. It's still distracting us from more important things. It's become a soap opera for many people, many men, and it's distracting them from bigger and more important issues in this country.
Well, that's my issue. You've got the male role model pulled down in all the other TV images and the culture on purpose, so the state can be the father and men and women are both the wives of the state now, or kind of the prostitutes of the pimp, the slaves of the owner. But it's just sick how then they hijack one of the final examples of, quote, manhood and turn it into a government extravaganza. What are you working on now in closing? What are some other corruption points in sports that you've been covering?
Well, one of the things I'm working on is that I have an article that should be coming out. I worked with Lance Williams, who co-wrote the book on Barry Bonds and Balco called Game of Shadows. And we have an article coming out about potentially fixed baseball game from 2012 and what Major League Baseball did to cover this whole thing up. And, my book Larceny Game is based on all these FBI files. I still get FBI files and FBI information about corruption within these sports. And I'm going to keep publishing it as long as people let me. I mean, I write for SportsOnEarth.com, which is affiliated with USA Today. And somehow they let me put some of this stuff out there. And I think, if fans look at it and really think about it, I think it'll open their eyes to what's really going on in professional sports and then what that means for the rest of the world.
Now, we've seen the third world caught over and over again in the World Cup in open corruption. We know that it's happening everywhere. From your research, is it getting worse or better?
It's getting worse because there's more and more money involved. I mean, they estimate perhaps as much as $1 trillion is bet illegally on sports around the world every year. In the United States, it might be as much as $500 billion bet illegally on sports. And that's not like a bet between you and me. That's a bet between me and my bookie. That's what's illegal. And if there's $500 billion being wagered illegally in the United States, nobody can tell me otherwise that that sort of money cannot and has not influenced the games we watch. It's just naive to think so.
What is your gut about what happened with Super Bowl 48? Because, again, regardless, it's a way to wake people up to the corruption. I mean, all the experts, almost all of them thought that Peyton Manning and the Broncos would win. And then you see that near shutout, and then you see them bragging, we broke their hand signs, openly trying to say it so it doesn't look like fraud. But for me, that's basically cheating. And so right there, it looks like the fix is in.
And it very well may have been. Like I said, I can't argue for sure that that was definitely fixed, but I know for a fact the NFL made money on that game. Fox made money on that game. The Las Vegas sportsbooks made money on that game. The illegal bookies made money on that game. Everyone profited. And what do they say about conspiracy? If everyone profits, Don Derek called it a conspiracy, correct?
That's right, my friend. Well, I really appreciate you spending time with us. Look forward to talking to you again. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate you having me on today.
You bet. One conspiracy theorist to another. Of course, a conspiracy theorist is one who's informed and does not believe known liars. It means the opposite of a chump.
Now you can watch The Alex Jones Show live as it happens at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
More than 60 movies and documentaries all in one place at Infowars.com/show.